Ow, why are you biting me? What?
Bing bong.
Wait,
Bing bong.
hello? Wait, what the? We listen to you, mostly? Wait, after all these years. I tried the new Razer keyboard and you should too.
Howdy, hey, I'm Hipyo Tech. And
After years, they finally listened to me. Razer finally made a good keyboard. Not these. Sorry, Razer. This. Now, I've hated on Razer keyboards a lot. Just look at literally all of my shorts. Now, this thing isn't perfect, and as you can tell, I've modded it, which we'll talk about later. But let's just say this is Razer's best keyboard yet.
well, you probably have a million questions as to why Razer suddenly made a good keyboard, in my eyes at least. And in this video, I'll be taking a look at the Blackwidow V4 75% from Razer. That's a bit of a mouthful, but I think the V4 is actually going to be meaningful. Now, Razer added a ton of features to this keyboard that makes it really good. Just listen to this. That is entirely stock, no mods. I mean, look at this, gaskets on a Razer keyboard. On top of it being really good stock, I'm also gonna fully take it apart and do some very interesting mods. Yes, that is kinetic sand I'm putting in the keyboard. You'll understand in a minute. But before you go out and buy this thing, there's a couple things I need to mention and also mod it. So stick around and find out. Now, this story begins with a letter from Razer. They said, "We know you tease us, we know you've tormented us, but I think you want to check this out." And Razer offered to sponsor this video. Now, if the first minute of the video doesn't tell you already, Razer did not tell me what to say in this video. They did not have any editorial control and no ability to edit this final video, which I made sure of. But this keyboard seems really interesting already. Hot swappable design, tactile switches, 75%, all of this from Razer in 2023, the year of our Lord? Now, there's already a lot of things that I want to test here, and don't worry, I'll get into everything. But this video is basically my first impressions of the board, mixed together with my experience modding it, and you're gonna want to see it modded. The first thing I noticed is that they say it has an aluminum case, but I'm gonna put that to the test. And it also says optimized typing experience. What are we optimizing for? Reddit posts per hour? I don't know. Now, I'll talk about the price in a second, but first let's just get this thing out of the box and check out the accessories. Now, some custom keyboards offer you things like lube kits and switch pullers, so I'm curious to see what Razer thinks. And okay, it does come with a cable, which is a welcome touch. Personally, I hate coiled cables, so it's nice to see a braided straight cable like this, and wrist rest. I'll get into my thoughts on those in a minute. I very subjectively hate those. But to their credit, it looks very nice and does feel squishy, which, yay, squishy wrist rest. There's also another accessories box, okay. One very welcomed addition in this box is a switch puller, which Razer says they're making this a custom keyboard, which we'll get into later. Next, I'm just gonna throw out the box and, oh, how did those get in there? God, guys, Razer's never gonna sponsor this video again. Okay, as much as I joke, Razer keyboards are fine, they're just not customs, so customs are always gonna seem better. But apparently this one is. This is the Razer Blackwidow V4 75, and it starts at $189.99. Now, my first thought is, that's a bit expensive, isn't it? But potentially some of the features in here could make it worth it for you. Now, the first thing I notice about this keyboard is that it still looks like a Razer keyboard, which Razer is probably very proud of. They really like that thing. And honestly, between you and me, the fact that it looks like a Razer keyboard already makes it more unique than 75% of all other custom keyboards. No shade, I mean, I'm just saying. Now, the second thing I noticed about this keyboard is a knob. I see a knob and two buttons. Or like, I guess technically this is a roller, but honestly, more custom keyboards need to have rollers. Rollers are so severely underrated and I miss them so much. Now, this keyboard says that it has an aluminum case, and sure, this top plate is aluminum, but it's also a fingerprint magnet. Holy moly. Now, it doesn't sound pingy by any means, which already puts it ahead of the GMMK Pro. Yeah. But wait, the back is plastic. You said that this is an aluminum case, but the back is plastic? I'm not gonna lie, that's a little bit misleading. Now, to Razer's credit, at the bottom of their product page under the FAQs, they say that it does have a plastic bottom housing, but they also say that it's a compact 75% layout with aluminum case. So now, ooh, Epic Gamer RGB, as expected on any Razer keyboard, of course. The RGB here performs well. Honestly, I'm like one of the 4 people that really likes Razer Synapse, so I had a great time using this software. It was easy to customize, it syncs with your games, and that's something that is just cool about Razer keyboards. Their RGB is the best, but there was actually one thing that wasn't really the best, and that's the brightness of the RGB. I don't know if this is because I got like a prototype unit, but the RGB on mine just felt really dim compared to some of the customs that I've worked with. Like, especially coming from Razer, a gaming RGB forward company, I think it definitely could be brighter. Now you do get shine through keycaps, which we'll talk about a little bit, but none of this is really custom yet. This is kind of just a Razer keyboard at face value. I mean, you get this wrist rest, which the reason why I don't like wrist rests is because it's actually not very ergonomic to use a wrist rest when you're typing. It puts your wrists at an angle that is not very friendly. It's used as a rest when you're not typing. But oh my God, I never thought I would see the day. Now this thing is gasket mounted, and honestly the performance here is very nice. It feels fun to type on actually, which is really cool. But why does it feel fun? Well, maybe because of these Razer Orange switches. These are the Razer Orange Tactile Gen 3s that the board ships with, and they're honestly really good, and we'll talk about them more later. But did you see that? Did you see that? I just swapped a switch on a Razer keyboard. A hot swappable Cherry MX supporting Razer keyboard. The stabilizers are fine. Now, love them or hate them, this board does ship with shine through double shot ABS keycaps, and let's talk about the switches again. Now, these are some impressively tactile switches that I was not expecting coming from Razer. Now, they have a light diffuser that makes me think that these were made by TTC, and if they were, that means they're pretty good switches. Now, Razer mentioned that these switches are factory lubed, and at first glance, I didn't really see much, but when I got closer, actually, yeah, the switches are lubed. Now, they're tactile switches, so they're not too lubed, otherwise you wouldn't have any tactility if you lubed the leg, but this leads to a really good stock typing experience that I would not expect from this type of keyboard. I'll give you a sound test in a second, after I put down my nice desk mat from Kinetic Labs, $24.99, link down below. Now, here is a sound test of the keyboard, entirely stock, I've done nothing. Now, it's not perfect. There's keyboards that sound better for cheaper, but again, this is a gaming keyboard we're talking about. It has features like a fast polling rate and stuff that people care about. Like the GMMK Pro is basically double the price for fully built. So at this point, I had to take it apart and see what was going on inside. And to my surprise, taking this thing apart was actually really easy. It was just 6 screws with the Phillips head screwdriver, or my wow stick, wow. And then the top piece lifted right off the bottom. And that piece that I'm holding in my hands right there, that's the aluminum case. You see what I mean? It's like a little bit wrong to say that this is an aluminum case keyboard. Like, there is aluminum in the case, but yeah. Now, this part does feel well built and isn't pingy at all. And honestly, plastic is not a bad thing to have in a keyboard. Some of the thockiest keyboards are made out of plastic. I'm just giving them a bad time because I feel like the marketing was a bit misleading. But what is this? Foam? Okay. There is a thin sheet of foam in this keyboard. It's not a lot, but also some people really don't like a lot of foam in a keyboard. And is this a tape mod? There's a tape mod on a Razer keyboard in what? Now, I don't know if I'm legally allowed to say this, but I thought it was cool. Razer had to get a fire-resistant tape mod. That way it met their QA standards, which I just thought was very interesting. Also, wait, gaskets? Pour-on gaskets that are pre-installed? This is really nice. All of these features add up to something that enhances your typing experience. Gaskets will make your typing feel a little bit more bouncy and absorb some of the reverberation so your keyboard doesn't feel super stiff. The foam is gonna make it maybe sound a little bit deeper. And yeah, I'm modding it, by the way. So because it's a customizable keyboard, I thought, why not customize it? And I'm gonna take off all of the keycaps and then all of the switches. Now, these switches are lubed, but I do think that the springs could be lubed a little bit better. Now, if I wanted to, I could take every one of these switches apart, lube them myself, and then it would be very, very, very good. However, I'm lazy, and I'm honestly not that big of a fan of tactiles myself, so I'm gonna build this thing out with something a little bit different. Also, if you've never built a custom keyboard before, this is how you remove a switch. You use a switch puller tool at the top of the switch, then you pinch it and pull them out. Now, we'll talk about the switches that I chose later, but first, let's take a look at this PCB. Now, here's where I'm also really impressed. They decided to opt for support for screw-in stabilizers, so if you don't like the included plate mount stabilizers, you can get rid of them. And there's foam in between the plate and PCB as well. These are all good touches, and it's clear that somebody at Razer watches a lot of Hipyo tech videos, or other keyboard content creation videos. But there was one thing that they missed, and I need to tear apart another keyboard to get it. If you're an avid viewer of my channel, you're probably thinking, no, Hipyo, don't take apart the Zoom 75. It's so precious. Too bad. Now, the one thing that this keyboard was missing is PE foam that I personally really like because I think it makes a keyboard sound more marbly and more poppy. This is a contentious thing in the keyboard hobby, but I'm gonna ignore that. I think it would have been a great touch. So with that small sheet of foam installed, and trust me, it does a lot, I'm gonna seal this thing back up and slap my cat's butt. Trust me, she likes that. Next, I'm gonna get these switches and, gonna have to move her out of the way. For the switches, I'm gonna go with Mirandi's from Wuche Studios. These are personally just my favorite stock linear switch. The reason why, they're just very well lubed from the factory. They come in at $45 for a set of 105, which you can use to kit out a keyboard. And honestly, I think it's an investment well worth it, especially if you don't want to spend the time lubing switches. But you don't need just this switch. There's tons of other switches that are very good and very well factory lubed. Think of like JWICs and stuff. Now, with the switches installed, it's time to move on to the next part of the build. And this part is keycaps. Now, I wanted to compare this keyboard against some other keyboards that I've tried before. So I'm going to be reusing some keycaps from a very famous build. These are the Sumgzin keycaps, 170 keys, double shot, SA profile, blue fishing, ANSI ISO layout, 625U spacebar. Anyway, they're like a $50 set of keycaps that I like to use because they tend to make a board sound deeper. Now with the keycaps on, you could be deceived and think that I'm done with modding this keyboard. However, I have one more sandy trick up my sleeve that's gonna cement it, into being a way better keyboard. But first, let me tell you about my general impressions of this board. With keyboards like the ROG Azoth now only costing $10 more, this keyboard becomes a bit more interesting. I think Razer has definitely made their best keyboard yet here, but it's hard to tell if the features make it worth it. Now, as I said before, this is the best keyboard that Razer has ever made, and that is something that could be awarded. Good job, Razer, you did it. But you're probably wondering, what does it sound like now that you've modded it for the first time? Yeah, this thing sounds really good, and it has a lot of potential. I honestly think the combo of the top aluminum case with the bottom plastic case gives it a nice, thocky sound profile, and it feels good to type on too. So in that respect, this is not a bad keyboard to buy. I would say the price is a bit expensive, but that's kind of Razer's whole thing. And oh yeah, it's time to mod it a little bit more. Did I mention it's gonna get better than you just heard? Better? Now, I should probably say that Razer does not recommend you do this. They didn't tell me to say that, but yeah, they don't recommend this. I'm gonna be filling this keyboard with kinetic sand. Now, this is a keyboard modding technique that I've used once in the past, and it made a keyboard sound really, really good. So I'm filling the bottom of the case with kinetic sand to give this a bit more heft and also a bit more thok and sound absorption. Keyboard sound is super subjective, but I personally like a really nice, deep, muted, thocky, poppy, creamy sound. Whereas Nola personally likes playing with sand. She's a simple cat. Now, Razer already covered most of the mods I would do to a keyboard to make it sound pretty good, and that's why it sounds pretty good stock. And this is gonna impact the gasket performance overall, so it's not gonna be as bouncy to type on, but it will sound more dampened, which is a give and a take. I'll give you the final sound test in a second, but yeah, my final thoughts are this thing is a better value than things like the GMMK Pro, but still a bit of a questionable value compared to some other things. It's the best Razer keyboard they've ever made, but that still gives them a little bit of room to improve on. And this is where I'd like to see Razer just continue to improve in the future, and then their keyboards will get better and better and better. I love this trend of gaming companies getting into custom keyboards. I think over the next year or two, everything's just gonna get better for everyone with just a little bit more feedback. I'll be leaving you with a sound test. Do a sound test of your own in the comments to let me know what you thought of this video. Bye.